The courtroom was silent as a little blind girl sat trembling, tears streaming down her face. No one believed her until the doors creaked open. Her loyal German shepherd walked in, carrying something in his mouth that would change everything. What he revealed left the entire court frozen in shock. The courtroom was heavy with silence, as though the air itself held its breath. A small blind girl sat on the witness bench, her tiny hands wrapped tightly around her white cane. Her dark glasses hid her eyes, but everyone could see the tears trembling on her lashes. Around her, whispers echoed. The jury exchanged uncertain glances. The judge's face was stern, and the audience filled the wooden benches. Intense anticipation. She felt their disbelief without seeing it. Her heart thudded in her chest. No one in that room trusted her words. No one believed a blind girl could know the truth. She shifted slightly, her legs dangling above the floor, searching for a sense of comfort that never came. She wished she could disappear, escape the heavy pressure pressing in from all sides. The sound of shuffling papers and distant footsteps only deepened the feeling of isolation. The girl gripped the handle of her cane and whispered softly to herself, calling for the one friend she trusted most, her dog. But the bench beside her remained empty. A single thought pulsed in her mind, louder than the courtroom silence. If only someone, anyone, what would believe me? The lawyer's voice broke the silence like a sudden clap of thunder. Miss, he said, leaning toward the little girl, you claim you know who hurt you, but how could you possibly see them? His tone dripped with doubt, and the courtroom murmured in agreement. Every word felt like a stone thrown at her. She swallowed hard. I didn't see him, she admitted, her trembling hands twisting around her cane. But I know what I heard. I know the smell. I know the sound of his shoes. Her voice was soft, yet it carried a strange certainty. But still, the jury looked unconvinced. A woman in the back row shook her head, whispering to the man beside her. The girl's shoulders drooped and the knot in her throat tightened. Her heart pounded. She had hoped someone would believe her, but all she heard was the scratching of pens and the judge's sigh. The prosecutor pressed again. Without proof, we can't take your word alone. The girl's lip trembled. Her world felt like it was collapsing until suddenly, beyond the wooden courtroom doors, there was the faint, unmistakable sound of claws tapping against the floor. Her face lifted with hope. She knew that sound anywhere. The courtroom door creaked open, breaking the heavy silence. Every head turned. A gasp rippled through the room as a large German shepherd trotted in, his claws clicking softly against the polished floor. In his mouth he carried a crumpled white cloth stained with something dark red. The blind girl's face lit up instantly. Max, she cried, her voice trembling with a mixture of relief and hope. The dog wagged his tail but walked with a serious focus, moving straight toward her like he had a mission. The judge leaned forward, eyebrows raised, clearly taken aback by the sudden disruption. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Whose dog is that? Someone muttered. Another voice said, Is that blood? The prosecutor stiffened, watching as Max gently placed the stained cloth on the floor. The little girl knelt, running her fingers over the fabric, her senses telling her something the jury could not yet see. Her small hands clutched the cloth tightly. This is from that night, she whispered. Gas filled the room again. The defense attorney froze, his confident smirk fading. Suddenly, the dog barked, a sharp commanding sound that seemed to echo off the wooden walls, pointing everyone's attention to the evidence he had brought. The judge cleared his throat, trying to restore order. Whose dog is this? He asked, though the answer was already clear. The blind girl wiped her tears and held her cane tightly. He's mine. His name is Max, she said softly. He was there that night. Max stepped forward, his nose twitching as he sniffed the cloth and then turned toward the defendant. The German shepherd's fur bristled and a low growl rumbled from his chest. The courtroom went silent, every eye locked on the tense standoff between dog and man. The defendant shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The prosecutor seized the moment. Your Honor, this dog is a trained companion. If he recognizes that man as the source of danger, it cannot be ignored. The jury leaned forward, captivated. Max barked once loudly, and the little girl flinched, but then slowly reached out to steady herself with his fur. Suddenly, the dog patted toward the evidence table. He sniffed the items laid out, photographs, a torn jacket, and a muddy shoe. Then, without hesitation, he pressed his paw on the jacket, whimpering softly. The room erupted in murmurs and the judge's gavel struck repeatedly to silence the crowd. This can't be real, the defense attorney muttered, his voice breaking. The little girl lifted her chin, tears streaming down her cheeks. Max remembers, she said, her voice stronger. Now, he saw what they all tried to hide, and he's telling you the truth. The courtroom felt like it was holding its breath. Max's paw still rested on the torn jacket, his growl low and steady. The judge leaned back, eyes narrowing as he studied the defendant. Sir, he said, voice firm, why is this dog reacting so strongly to your belongings? The defendant's face palled. He glanced nervously at his attorney, who whispered frantically, but offered no defense. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead. Meanwhile, Max barked sharply, the sound echoing through the high ceiling room. The blind girl clutched her cane, heart pounding, knowing her loyal friend was speaking for her. The prosecutor rose slowly, holding the stained cloth that Max had delivered. Your Honor, this cloth matches the fabric of the defendant's jacket. The dog recognized it immediately. Even without sight, this child knew the truth, and now her companion confirms it. Gas rippled through the audience like waves. The jury exchanged uneasy glances. The man on trial trembled, his hands gripping the wooden table as though it could anchor him against the tide turning in the girl's favor. For the first time, the blind girl felt the weight of doubt shift from her small shoulders to the guilty man's. Max stepped closer to the defendant, staring with unwavering focus. Then, as if sealing the unspoken truth, he barked again, sharp and decisive. The judge raised his hand to silence the whispers, his expression changing. This court, he said slowly, is starting to see what this little girl has known all along. The tension in the courtroom was unbearable. The judge's gavel struck the desk once, echoing like thunder. Order, he commanded, though even he seemed moved by the scene unfolding. Max sat at the girl's feet now, head held high, as if silently waiting for justice to finally speak. The prosecutor presented the final evidence, a forensic report showing that the cloth contained both the girl's and the defendant's DNA. The jury leaned forward, their expressions hardening with realization. The defense attorney slumped in his chair, defeated. It was no longer just a dog's intuition. It was undeniable proof. The blind girl clung to Max, whispering softly into his fur. We're almost there, boy. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but this time they were not just from fear. They carried hope. The courtroom, once skeptical, now seemed to lean toward her side, drawn in by her bravery and Max's loyalty. Finally, after tense deliberation, the judge spoke. This court finds the defendant guilty on all charges. The words hit the room like a wave. The girl gasped, her tiny hands covering her mouth, while Max let out a single bark, as if celebrating the justice he had fought for. Applause erupted softly among the spectators, though the judge quickly called for order again. The blind girl knelt beside Max, hugging him tightly. You saved me, she whispered. For the first time since that dreadful night, she felt truly safe, knowing her loyal companion had not only protected her but given her back her